Very good evening to everyone. We are here with yet another virtual session with Vipanchika, and she have completed her graduation BBA and MSc in psychological counseling and MSc in the behavioral sciences. She has experience of 5+ years in the HR department. She decided to pursue a career in psychology and got certification and internships in the privileged and prestigious institutes like St. John's Medical College and Hospital and RFS Rehab Center. She is currently under her thesis research and interning at Velovise, a holistic health startup, and where she is focusing on building the mental health package for the upcoming generation or the people who are suffering from the mental illness. So with this small introduction, we would like to welcome you on our platform to have a talk on the topic general mental health awareness from counseling psychology perspective. Thank you so much.
First of all, thank you for making me a part of your organization. It's a very good insight in terms of it's very much needed that we know about other things. You know, a lot of people do not know about Ayush medical, interventions. People don't know much about the mental health. I think it's a very good start. Very good. I think a very good step to to start collaborating both the things. So I'm happy to be a part of this. And so moving on, I'll just if you don't mind, I'll just start presenting.
Yeah,
um,
sure. Sure.
yeah, I wanted to talk about general mental health awareness from a counseling psychology perspective. Because a lot of time we mix certain things, right? Psychology, in terms, it's a very big, huge subject. It involves a lot of neurological aspects, a lot of everything involves, right? So the counseling psychology is one part of it, right? But there are other things like clinical psychology and rehabilitation, all of that intervention. There are other things. So it's a very huge topic. So I wanted to give you an outlook of how you should see the mental health from a counseling psychology perspective. So start with, as you gave introduction about me, so I would want to tell more about myself. I'm Vipanchika. I was born and brought up in Jaipur, Rajasthan, and but my parents are from Andhra Pradesh. So if you see, I have two different cultures anyway, North Indian and South Indian. So I'm a person, because I was brought up there and born there. So I have a lot of, close connection to North Indian food and culture and all of that. But, my parents are everybody from South. So it's a mix of both. So then I did my undergrad BBA in HR from Hyderabad. And after that, I graduated and I was started working on HR, human resource, starting from recruitment to everything, people ops, everything, right? That was the time that I felt that something was missing out in my career, or I was I was thinking that probably there's something more that I need to work on. So there were times that I felt like I'm not doing the right thing, and I'm losing. If you see from a HR perspective, a lot of good news and the bad news are put it on the shoulders of HR and taken. So let's say if it's about hiring, that's also the news comes from the HR, and if it's about the firing as well, the termination is also actually from the HR perspective. So it's more of a company viewpoint, that how you as a person take care. So that's when I started interacting more and more with the people. I felt like there is a lot more, just the conversation that we have in a day-to-day functionality, a day-to-day conversation. So how would a person feel? How can I make things better for the other person? It just kind of triggered me that I was not doing enough in the career, or I felt like there was something missing, or so that's when it triggered, and I was like, okay, let's see something. Because at that time I was going through a phase where I seek therapy, and I felt like, okay, why not think about this career, or just explore. So I started with a counseling certificate course from IIPR, Indian Institute of Psychology Research from Bangalore. So they have a 6 months course that I did with them, and it was a weekend classes, so I used to be able to manage with the work plus everything. So everything was going fine. And then there was, after my course I completed in 2018, and just after that I just felt, why can't I take this as a complete full time. It was a huge step because I was anyway 24 back then, and doing masters at that time, everybody was like, what are you doing, are you mad, or are you sure that you really want to do something like this, which is very off. But then at the same time, when I was applying for colleges, I was interning at RFS, which is a rehabilitation center in Bangalore. They have clients across bipolar, schizophrenia, and like they have daycare, halfway homes, and everything. So that's how I started my career. Then I wanted a more of internship in the psychiatry department in St. John's College. It was uh, it was I was amazed, the kind of world that I never knew. So it was a more of exploratory, and I just loved it, and it was just more of a kind of high that I was getting, in terms of like, oh my god, this is something new that I never explored, or there's so much to know about psychology, about people, about how you can do for a society for a bit. I was always that kind of person that who wanted to think about the social perspective, that how we can change, how we can bring an impact, and all of that. So it was always in the time in my mind, but I never took a step. So this is how I changed my career. And then I'm in my last sem from MSc Counseling Psychology and my behavioral science. So I'm doing my thesis. That's the last step for my degree. And at the same time, I'm doing my internship in Weatherwise, which is a mental health startup based out of Delhi. And I am interning for them so that I can create there they have a program called Revise Mind, which is helping the users to to understand if they want a mental health intervention in their life, if they are going through something. It's just not if they are going to a mental health illness, but even if they have any concerns that they would like to talk about. um, so they we are working on that particular thing in Veloise. So followed by, I'll just start with a basic introduction about what is mental health and what is mental illness. It is very important for us to know, because we generally mix both the things. So when you see mental health as more of a, it reflects our emotional and psychological and social well-being, whereas mental illness is more about, it's the health condition that talks about, right? It involves changing in emotion, thinking, behavior, perspective, or it's a combination of all, right? So it is very important to understand the mind and the body. It is equally very, so you should take this as like a circle, right? It's without mind, your body won't function well. Without your body well, your mind won't function well. So it's always, it's just the mix of both. So we need to understand how both the things work together. It is equally important for taking our mental health seriously as well as our physical health, and physical health taking it seriously to have a better mental health, right? So it's like that, we should take it in a that way. um so there were a couple of questions which was given to me. So I'll go one by one with the questions asked with your group. So the first question that you guys asked me was, how can we improve our approach towards mental health? It's a very good question, and it's an ongoing debate that we all talk about, right? But in my perspective, and according to a lot of research which is going on, it talks about that our approach should be more holistic in nature, more integrative, rather than rather than targeting or like tagging people that, hey, you're bad, or something is wrong with you, or something is off. Rather than that focusing, you should more, the approach should be towards mental health is, be holistic in nature, see all the aspects, be more integrative in nature, right? Provide more support, take the individual as a whole person. You should not talk just that mental health needs are there. There are other aspects that we should talk about, right? It is a combination, that the kind of support that you give is physical, emotional, social, spiritual well-being, All these factors are very important, and this creates a whole holistic approach that we should have, right? These supports, we should understand that these supports are influenced by a lot of things. So I have a mnemonic for this, which is called addressing, right? So when you're taking a holistic approach, see the A stands for age, see the age of the individual. The disability, D stands for disability, which is acquired by the birth. If the some person is having special needs from by birth, that's one of the disability that we should see. Then D for disability, which is a developmental. Over period of time, you develop that, or let's say the accident caused the disability, right? R stands for religion and spirituality, where that individual comes from, right? Their background, their ethnicity, their religion, their spiritual well-being. What do they follow? What kind of norms that they follow? Ethnicity, again, it's more of a culture perspective, that where they come from, right? Um, and socioeconomic status. What about, poor or middle class or upper middle class or whatever? It's the status that we should think about. Then S again stands for sexual orientation. It's about, the right now we're talking about equality and all of that, but there are a lot of gender orientation, we don't talk about it. Sexual orientation, we don't talk about it. Right now the topics are coming, which is, being okay with LGBTQ, or being more aware about that there is existence of them. Initially it was never accepted, or they were always tagged as. Right now they want to be as, they want to be included in our society as normal as other people, other human beings that are living right now with us. So then indigenous heritage, what kind of culture heritage that they come from, where the whole holistic background, more about in detail. Then the nationality origin, where, so then G stands for gender. Again, gender is a big subject, so it's just not the male female, but the other aspect. People sometimes, even after growing up, they don't know about, do they want to be in that gender, or do they want to be tagged in that, right? So there is a lot of question, and there are people who are queer in nature, right? So these, addressing these factors in the holistic will tell that you should be more inclusive in nature, that you're including people in it rather than tagging it. So my outlook for mental health is that when you see a person having some issues, or we feel that for us sometimes it's not normal, right? Seeing that from our perspective is not the thing. Seeing that, that inclusive in nature is what we should look it for, not seeing the world from what is normal for us and what is not normal for us, right? Because our values, our society, everything is so much interlinked, that we should understand that we should put everything together as one, rather than taking like, this is bad, this is not, or you can't be allowed in this. There's so still, I mean, I'm just surprised we are living in the 21st century and we still have issues with the gender inequality. Just not the male and female, but other genders as well. Like we are not able to break that stigma, right? So I think addressing these factors and having a holistic approach, integrative, more provide support. These are the things that we should look about, right? Um, just yeah. So the second question that was asked to me was, what risk and benefits are associated with treatment as health practitioner approach? Um, in my perspective, I would not say that risk or benefits, but again, I'll come to the point where I'm talking about that we should just focus more on integrative methodology and more of a client-centered approach. Not feeling that ki, let's say if the person is going through some sort of a stressor, rather than, thinking, experimenting on them, rather than what works for them, try that, right? So if the person is okay with the therapy, just the therapy and not the medication, that's also fine. If the client is comfortable, again, focus on the client and the patient, right? Do not try to work on the experimentation part, that doing multiple things with the client, doing art therapy, doing whatever medicines, doing everything. What happens is, the client and the patient would not see the impact, or it is out of their comfort zone, rather than work on something which is more integrative and more client centered approach, right? I should not say that only just the medicines or the health practitioner approach is the only thing, but more of when it comes to integrative is the main approach that we should think about, and focus on the ethical perspective from the client and patients. That is very important. uh, so I would want you to just take 2 minutes to understand. I just planned a small activity, Um, so during the session, just try to understand, write down 5 factors that helps you to cope with the stress, right? So for an example, for me, 5 factors is like going for a walk, going for a workout, listening to some music, uh, just talking to my dog, just expressing my emotions to my dog. That helps. Um, Writing, sometime it helps me. So there are somewhere like 5 factors. Just imagine, uh, how would you feel if you couldn't rely on these strategies? Suddenly everything is taken away, right? Suddenly if my dog is not there, suddenly I'm not able to write, how would you feel, right? So we should understand how these small things can also affect us. We generally don't talk about in mental health. A lot of people just talk about because of the environmental factor, because of this, because of that. But we should understand at the same time how a person was coping throughout. Suddenly if that is just taken away, how would somebody feel? We never talk about that, right? So just take that moment for 2 minutes just to see what existing coping strategies we have, and suddenly if it's just taken away, how would you feel? Just take 2 minutes, and you would feel how important it is for us to understand, right? um, okay, so followed by the next slide that talks about question that was given to me was, how can client and patient can take an active role in their care safety through education? It's a very good question. So education is a very crucial part for all of us, right? From a mental health perspective to our clients and patients, what we focus on is education can help them in training, right? Which can help to maintain their functionalities. They would learn, that they would see, they can train themselves. So education mode can help them to use these things as a coping strategy for a person. Then the psychoeducation is a very important part, right? The client and patients, just not only the client, not the individual, but even psychoeducating the caregivers, the family, the friends that they are with, and to just psychoeducating all of these people can make the life little easier for the clients and patients, right? Just to make them aware about their current illness, or their current situation, their current issues. Just psychoeducating them and the family members and the people around them would just make little life easier for them. And I think that's more important. Mental health is just more about that, taking one step at a time, and making life easier for all of us. I think that's where humanity also comes in, right? So education can also promote their active participation for their self-care and self-management. So what happens is, when it comes to the mental health, um, and I'm talking about the normal population. So let's say if a normal 25-year-old girl or whatever, she's working, she's doing everything, but suddenly some add-on stressors, some personal issues are coming up, and they are not able to take care of themselves, right? And making them aware about that, your mental health can affect to your physiological and bodily issues. That kind of awareness is, if it's given, that it's okay, it is normal, it happens to every one of us. It's just that, the kind of severity differs from person to person. It's not like that, if somebody's rich, he won't have stresses. Or if somebody is very poor, only they'll have stresses. No. For them, the stresses might differ, severity would be different, but everybody goes through a lot of stress, right? Stress, anxiety, things won't work for us. There's so many, always, a contradiction between why it's not happening in our way, right? So there's always a conflict going in our mind. What we think, what we do, what we feel, if it doesn't match us, it does affect us. Just not only our mind, it just affects to our body as well. So if you talk about, the anxiety, the stress, there are a physiological symptoms that you can see. So when we as a counselor take any sort of case history, medical status examination, we focus just not only on the thoughts, feelings, and emotions. We focus as well on the bodily symptoms. What happens is when you're going through a stress, it's a flight and flee mode. So what happens sometimes, you are nervous and you would make your body stiff, right? And that's where the yoga and meditation will help you to just calm your body, be more aware about your surroundings, right? Educating about that, bringing more awareness to the client and the people around them, it's very important. So education is very important. We should not feel that education should be only, the master level PhD, that's it, not beyond that. But everybody needs it. Education doesn't stop based on your age. Everybody learns. Every day you're learning something. Every day you're educating yourself. And every day is a new day. So that's how we should take it. And that's how education is so important, um, to our clients, to individual, to anybody, right? Um, so then the next question that was asked to me was intensive care approach towards mental health client patients. So from my experience and from what I've studied and everything, um, there are three things that we focus in the intensive care approach. So first thing is, supporting the clients, maintaining the symptoms of the clients. So let's say if the client is not, if he or she is a schizophrenia and having for past 20 years, and their functionality, again, you have to see how much are they able to do, their cognitive ability. You have to see, are they able to do the basic chores, cleaning themselves, basic all of those activities. So you have to support the client in maintaining those symptoms. You don't want that symptoms to increase and they are not able to function in a way that they used to. I'm not telling getting them completely on the 100% functionality, but maintaining it and supporting them. And at the same time, if the client is able to increase or decrease the symptomology, that's how the focus goes on. There are times that in the intensive care approach that I've seen that, the clients who have dementia, the patients who have dementia, they don't know their names. But what if, you say those words again and again, that your name is this, or people around them. So at least if they are able to memorize the other people name, it's a kind of a good improvement, right? So we should focus more on, the maintaining the symptoms and more of the supporting them. Then the second point that comes is a lot of relapse prevention. You don't want the client patient to come back what they started. So in terms of relapse prevention, let's talk about concerning with the addiction. So let's say if somebody was drinking uh, 10 or 10 5 shots in a day, and every day they used to drink, so that means there is an addiction, there is an addiction composition over there, there is a compulsion that the person has to drink. So when they go into the rehab facilities or any sort of health support that they take, mental health support, after that we see that are they able to control, because in that environment obviously they'll control, right? Obviously they can't drink in a hospital, or they won't be. But then after, once they are out, are they able to control, are they able to control on the compulsion, right? Are they able to prevent not to drink? Are they avoiding those? So let's say if the person was like, I don't want to, I don't want to step out, I don't want to go out with my friends because I feel like drinking again. So if that awareness, if that mindfulness comes in a patient, that they are able to control on their drinking habit and focusing on that, that it should not trigger the client again and they start drinking. So more of focus on the relapse prevention and the intervention should be focused. So it's just not about the medicine, just see the holistic approach. Just giving the medicines won't work. Working throughout their things, you should work with their day-to-day functionality, their day-to-day goals, what they should have, what kind of approach they should think about. More creating that relapse prevention around them. The treatment plan should be like that you should focus on the prevention and the intervention so that the relapse doesn't happen, so that it's like the things doesn't trigger back to them and they start drinking again. That's one of the example that I was giving about the relapse prevention. Then the third approach that we always do is the continuous assessment is being monitored, right? The kind of ability. So let's say in a day one, what was the ability of the client and patient that came in, and what is there the next day? Is it degrading? Assessing the everyday, how they are able to do it, how are their ability, how are their cognitive ability, what are the other abilities are they able to, what about the functionality are they able to. Monitoring those factors are very important, and that's what goes through in intensive care approach, what I've observed in my experience, right? So these are the three things that goes through. Obviously there are more perspective, but these are the main things that I can think about and I can share with you. um, yeah. So the next question which was asked was that what kind of behavioral treatment could be helpful in integrative approach. So when it comes to the integrative and holistic approach, first thing is, as I told, it is very important to have a personal centered approach. A lot of time what happens is we feel that we tag someone and we feel that okay, he or she has bipolar, he or she has schizophrenia, he or she has ADHD or whatever. We'll just give them the medicines, we'll just work around, that's it. But we don't see the bigger picture where we focus them in the middle, and we create these other interventions for them so that we can see the approach if it's helping them or not. We generally experiment for the other people, but we should not see the ethical perspective. You should not, we should think whenever we are treating the people, it should be more beneficial and see all the outputs, what works well for the client. Sometimes the therapy might not, sometimes just therapy and exercise might work. So that you have to experiment, but based on the comfort of the person. A lot of time client centered approach is not taken seriously, but it is very important for us to understand, keep the client as in a middle and a main approach to be worked on, right? The psychotherapy, that's basically about thinking about their thoughts and their childhood experiences, their whatever the relevant experience, the trauma, that all of that. These kinds of will help you. It talks about more about your past and the present intervention. That's how the psychotherapy works. But whereas CBT works completely on the cognitive behavioral, talks about the thought, behavior, and feelings, right? So that focuses on completely, CBT completely focuses on what kind of thoughts the client is having, what kind of behavior that they're having because of that, and what kind of feeling. So it's a cycle that you go through. You see the client thoughts, what kind of feelings that they're having, and what kind of action, what kind of behavior are they letting it out. So you have to work on all these aspects where it comes to the CBT, right? So I feel these are the three main behavioral treatment approach that should be focused in the integrative health. And yeah. So the next question was asked to me was what exactly the genetic counseling is. Genetic counseling is basically a process that has a characteristics of, that undertakes the family genetics and inherited disorder. So what we also take it. So what happens is we don't take it completely like this, but we make genograms. When a client comes, we ask them about their family. Anybody has had some sort of illnesses, or they have a family history of depression, family history of anything, mental illness, neurological symptoms. That would help you to see if there is a correlation, if there is a connection between that. If the client has got inherited those disorders, right, it'll just help you to, it's more of to connect, if you can connect those dots. So a genetic counseling has a process which, like, again, consists of, like, checking the family medical history, medical records, ordering the genetic test, evaluating the test and the records, helping the parents understand and reach to a decision about what to do next. So let's say, uh, if a family comes to you and they are planning for a family planning, if they're uh, planning for a baby, right? And they have seen some sort of, a family history of depression or schizophrenia or bipolar with their grandparents or whatever. It can be factors. And if the parents are having it, those symptoms right now. So these, bringing that awareness and how to reduce that kind of correlation, that's where genetic process will help. Where it will help you is to identify and to interrupt those risks that are inherited from your genetics, right? It explain the inheritance patterns. You will have the answers, like why is your son or your kid or having a ADHD or any other neurological symptoms, and making okay with it rather than tagging it. Again, these processes helps you to not tag people, but making parents and other people around us that it is okay, it is genetic in nature. Sometimes it is not in our control, and sometimes if it is, we should focus on how to work towards it, right? Then suggesting some sort of test which will help them, then lay out the possible scenarios, right, for them, to making that picture that this is how it's going to be if it's inherited illnesses that you will have, like your kids will have or whatever. So giving that output is what genetic counseling, it's much more into that. I'm just giving you the basic perspective how it looks like from a genetic counselor perspective, but it's a very new ongoing thing. What we have done, what we do is very basic of a genogram, trying to understand the relation, just not the illnesses. Plus, we also see if there is some sort of a social issue, some sort of personal issue. So let's say if the family has gone through a divorce, some sort of separation, some sort of stresses around it, there can be a kind of correlation which can impact on the mental health of the person individual. So seeing that, that is what we do. We work on the genogram, but genetic is completely talks about the medical history, the medical records of the family around it, so that if they need help to identify, to instruct on the inherited disorder, that they can work on or they can work towards it. Bringing more awareness to the people, that's more important. I mean, back then in my school, I used to have a classmate who had a learning disability. So that's where I want to give you an example of mental health in a perspective of inclusive in nature. So in our school, that classmate of mine had a learning disability. Our teachers never tagged him separately, right? He was more inclusive in nature. He was just sitting next to us, and he was not as fast as, or he was not able to read as fast as like us, or not able to comprehend like us. But then including him into our class was more of inclusive in nature, rather than tagging him and like giving him to send to a special school key, because you're a slow learner, we'll shift you to a different special school. There's always a uh, ongoing debate around it, that how would you help? Does that special school help, or just the, I think understanding the severity of the mental health illnesses would obviously help. if that person was just a slow learner and other abilities are fine, that's why probably he was kept in our school. Probably if the severity was too much and the behavioral output was not, will impact the other people, that's why they send to a special education, or the teachers are not having the capability to teach the slow learners, then they would suggest them to take the kids to a special education setup. So again, that boils down to again that mental health should not just be tagging, it should be more inclusive in nature. That's why the holistic approach and the integrative approach works, right? So the next question that was asked was like how the online approach towards recreational activities for the clients is helpful or not. First thing, yes, it is helpful because of the ongoing pandemic, things have changed for all of us, like, it's just not only for few people, it's just taken for the whole world. It has changed for everyone, right? It is helpful, but we have to understand that there are the limitations of online approach. I mean, just see that whatever the session that we are having online right now, how different would have been if we would have just been in one place and we had a good session about, there would be a debate, there would be an ongoing discussion that would be interesting. Obviously there's a limitation of this approach as well, right? Understanding that, and having that, because of the less human interaction, we cannot see the results with as visible comparative to during the in-person activities, but it is helpful is what I feel. At the same time, we should be very mindful about what activities that can be used for the online approaches, right? I can't give a physical exercise that, go and play football and I'll just, take the online. No, that teaching football online, I don't think so that's feasible. But probably painting session, art, craft, musical sessions together, singing together, physical activities like, breathing exercise, meditation, stretching, the yoga. There's so many things that can be done online. But at the same time, we have to understand that obviously there will be limitations because there's no in-person interaction, but we should be just mindful about it. But at the same time, it is very helpful. It is comfortable for people to be at one place. They don't have to travel, so they can experiences at their home, at their comfort. So uh, I feel it is helpful and it should be promoted more. And we should think about more creative ideas of what kind of recreational activities would be suiting and would be able to do wonders. Right. Um, yeah. So the next question which was asked was, is yoga and meditation helpful? And what's my point of view? So uh, there is a significant benefits of yoga and meditation. There's a lot of research has gone through in this, right? Based on the mental health as well. Yoga, which yoga just helps you to keep the body and the spirit together in balance. It is very important. Again, when we talk about mental health and physical health, there should be always a balance, and yoga is kind of a way where you can, that time that during you do yoga, it's a kind of where the body and the spirit comes together in a balance, your mind comes together in a balance, right? Wherein meditation, there are so many benefits that it has, is like helps you to first become more aware what's going around you and your mind. It just helps to control your mind. It comes back, it helps you to homeostasis mode, which is basically the normality, the balance of your body, mind and body together. This gives you more ability to stay centered, stay focused, regardless of these circumstances. So, for my personal example, if I am like really stressed out with something, or something has really bothered me personally, or I've got hurt, obviously expressing it, I'll start crying. But after that, you know just coming back to my normal balance, just giving that breathing exercise for 5 minutes that I do, is makes my body come back to normal. it wonders. I don't it is just so beautiful to see that just your breathing exercise, just your meditation just helps you come back again on your balance, on your focused, on your centered. So it's a very beautiful thing that meditation and yoga does. um, so so I have experience of I'm a national level tennis player. So the sport that I play, tennis, is obviously very much physical in nature. But at the same time, when we do a cooling exercise where we try to bring our body back to the normal, we do yoga and meditation, right? Because you've gone through so much physical strain, but and at the same time, your mind has also strained a lot. So giving that both balance, having that doing, we used to do yoga and meditation. I still do it, right? It is very helpful, but again, when we are seeing from a mental health approach, we should just not focus on these two, right? So it has physiological benefits and it has psychological benefits. It helps us to cope with the ongoing challenges that we have mentally, physically. It helps you to maintain the integrity, peace of mind. It helps you to be more self aware. It helps to have a self actualization, right? It also helps become aware of your strength and weakness and the limitation at the same time. You are aware of it, right? But again, the whole point comes back to where we just cannot rely on these approaches for the betterment of the individual. We should again focus on the holistic and integrative approach, right? Um, so again, which was a very beautiful question asked, was how can you how can you build your career in this stream? So from a counseling perspective, I feel as your Ayush medical students, right, it focuses on Ayurveda, it focuses on yoga, homeopathy, Siddha, Unani, and it is more of an additional healing system that you guys represent, right? There's a lot of amount of research which has gone through on the Ayush, right? So there is a great need of for you people to bring up the psychological well-being, and the way there is a rapid increase of the stressful situations around us. So there, first thing, there is a very huge need for all you guys, right? So how would you build your career here is, I feel that you should focus on more research where you are able to produce more of a correlational studies, just not only focusing on Ayush, but then how would you have a correlation study between Ayush and psychology, bringing and the neurological perspective at the same time. So bringing that effect is very important. There's obviously a lot of so Nimhans is one of the institutes which are having a lot of research around Ayush. So they have a lot of papers regarding where they have done on you know the increase in well-being of the person with the schizophrenia, with the clients that they have, and they have done yoga, meditation, all of these factors, and they have seen the kind of increasing in well-being, and the medication dependency has reduced. So there is immense research is going on. I think doing focus on the research is very important, that I feel. um, then focus on the intervention based approach. Do not focus on that's the only thing. More of an intervention that, okay, once person is aware that he or she is going through a mental illness, focus on the treatment and intervention plan, how Ayush can be helpful, or how these factors what you've learned can be helpful for the person, rather than the treatment as itself. Focus more on one of the integrative part, one of the holistic approach part, and which is the intervention based approach, right? Focus on taking a certificates course. There are so many certificate courses that you can work on. There's so many workshops that Nimans conduct to get more. So I think to build a career, you need to have more and more information, and you can gain lot of more knowledge, right? So I think that's how you can build. As I did was, it's it was important for me to know the other side of the world, which I've not. I just saw the humans from a corporate world, humans from where I used to interact. But I have never, I've never in my life before St. John's have went into psychiatry ward. That was my first time. And when I saw that, that was a whole different world, you know, and when I wanted that, I want to know more about it. Having that zeal to gain more knowledge around it. And trust me, psychology and science is like a beautiful subject. It is just ongoing knowledge. It never ends. That's the beauty of the education and knowledge. You cannot stop learning. Every day you can learn. Every day is a good knowledge that you'll have. Every experience is very important for you, right? So I feel these pointers would help you people to build your career in this stream, right? So then the last question that was asked to me was, how do you look towards mental health and taboo in our society and brings changes through our efforts? So if I want to talk about the mental health stigma, in our society, we still consider this as a shame, or it's more of a disapproval, or we feel that it's just not normal, right? But again, I feel all of these are caused because of the lack of awareness and education and the perception we have and the fear that people have. So if I want to give my personal experience, when I took therapy, when I was working as an HR, um, right? It so when I spoke to my parents about it, that I'm not feeling well from, mental perspective, from the mind, and I feel little very low most of the time. I mean, I should not say that, but back then my dad said, okay, watch a movie, you'll feel good, right? So that's how our society is still built up. We feel that's like, okay, that's like there's nothing, or it's just not important, it's just your state of mind, and they feel that if you do something you can just distract yourself. For them, mental health, for my parents, I think at that point of time they just felt that, just distracting myself would help me to feel better, right? That kind of, that is how our society have built up, and they have fear in within the people, because we are humans who are social animals, right? At the same time, we are very focused on the society, that society disapproval, society ka normal, what is society normal, that's how I should focus on, right? So I feel that this is all still the mental health. I mean, we have a long way to go because of the pandemic. I think there is obviously awareness, there is an insight about people that there's something called mental health, and it is, as I said, that it's okay to be not okay. It is very important to see that perspective, right? um, and changes can be done by just understanding the and understanding ourselves, seeking help when it's needed, and getting more understanding from a renowned knowledgeable mental health practitioners. It should not just like कि, papa mummy ne bata diya, ya whatever, or anybody else might have told. But I think how you can bring changes is first to be more self-aware about that something is wrong or something is not okay with me, or I'm not feeling the right way that I should be feeling, right? There is always an ongoing conflict between what I used to feel and what am I feeling. Like, why am I like this? There are constant thoughts about that, I wasn't like this before. Why am I like this now? What is making me so? Bringing more awareness around it, right? That you are not okay, but it's okay to be not okay again, right? Openly about your mental health. So when I spoke to my parents, I felt better. I was like, okay, at least they know something is wrong, right? After that, probably after the therapy, they could see the improvement in me. So I think talking more openly about is one of the biggest changes that we can bring. That's the first baby step that we can do. Educating yourself and others, that's very important, rather than just like, okay, that first thing is there's so much content around it that sometime we might be misguided. But again, that's where you boil down to somewhere you get an understanding from the knowledgeable people, from the researchers, from the the kind of, you understand that those things, right? Educate yourself and you educate others as well at the same time. Mental health, I think, uh, as a person, you know, being with someone who's going through something bad time is also okay. Just presence is enough sometimes, right? That's a start. I think humanitarian approach is very important, right? Be more connected. Because of the pandemic, there's so many times that we are not connected with the people that we should be, right? We hardly text, we hardly call. But I think staying connected is the base thing. And try to educate yourself and others as well. At the same time, encourage to have more equality between the physical and the mental concerns. We like if if somebody comes with a fractured bone, I would focus, oh, you should be fine with, okay, you help them to, food, bath, and all of that. But at the same time, when somebody is going through, a really hard time, a really, a kind of trauma, a kind of grief that they're experiencing, I think giving that balance, giving that concern that there is, they are also going through a really bad phase, accepting it, making that as also making that as equally as physical, that's very important for us, right? The last point that I would want to focus on is choose empowerment over shame. A lot of time we feel that mental health, we suppress it. We suppress if somebody is neurological, has concern. So I mean, I'm sure that we all in our family, all might have geriatric people, old age people, and with the age their cognitive abilities goes down. Most of the time people don't share about what their concerns, what the old age people have going through, or let's say they have Alzheimer's. They don't talk about it. They shame them, they suppress them, that ki nahi nahi ghar mat aao, don't come at home. But, I have a very old age person at home, and they don't make them, again, it's more of that shame goes through, rather than empowering them, hey, I'm doing these many things because I have a person. So more of empowering that, oh, she's doing so much, or hey, she's doing a lot, right? So I think those factors are very important. Choosing empowerment over shame is very important. So I think that's the last point that I wanted to talk about. And now we can open the floor for the questions. Hello.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I do have few questions to you, and
Yeah.
I start with
I'm.
your
Yeah.
you can
Hmm.
say.
No. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do have a questions, and I do start with a word you say in the whole presentation. You have said these are the question which was asked to you.
Hmm.
That the way you have presented the whole presentation. May I know what is the idea behind that?
So the main idea is that I wanted to give you a perspective from the counseling psychology perspective, a general mental health. A lot of time, what happens is we see psychology as just one thing, or mental health as just one component, but it's a bigger, vast thing. A lot of things are very unknown for us, and it's still, I think, seeing just from one lens, there's this one generic lens that we all see mental health from. Putting that lens from, a counseling perspective is what I wanted to show you. From your Ayush medical student, it might be a different lens to see the mental health, right? So being more aware of these other studies, other experiences, other knowledges, it is, I think that was a main aspect which was going in my mind, that I wanted to show these particular things, that how we as a counselor see these particular concerns, or how we process it, how we take it further. Yeah. I
That's a
hope I
very,
answered your
yeah,
question.
that's a very good approach, I must say. So my second question would be, as your profile says, you have done BBA,
Yeah.
okay, and you are doing right now studies in the psychology, mental perspective. So
Yeah.
your graduation, if basically I see it's a kind of HR, which needs to be think in the psychological way. and your further studies was also related to the same. So what was your thought
Yeah.
when you were going to choose a scope of BBA in HR and then do this MSc in psychology? Because these are not different paths, but it's a very correlated if a student should look into that point. So how you see that?
So, so when I was doing my undergrad, so BBA HR is very too much into that. They would tell about organization ka behavior. Everybody talks about more organization perspective about how the organization work, how is the structure. Nobody has ever spoken, or it's just one subject that I studied was psychology, introduction to psychology. That's it. It was just one semester, one subject that I studied, but nobody spoke about, you know, the people that we meet, that we talk about, that kind of thoughts and emotions that we talk about. What about the day-to-day functionality? Nobody talks about that. They just spoke about, you know, organization. This is their job profile. This is 9 to 5 job that they had to work, and this is how they'll get be paid. They never took training as seriously. They never spoke about individual is different in nature. You and me are different. People from the same department, from the same job who are doing, they are different. They are different in lot of ways. We all are different. That's the beauty of humans, right? We all are so different that I think we'll be still exploring each other even when the world ends, right? That's the beauty of humans. I mean, and that's where my interest was, that, you know, I'm just seeing the organization just from the organization perspective ki, you know, how the organization look, or how does it works completely, or how the things work, but never worked on the behavior of the human organization works. Nobody spoke about, everybody talks about the productivity and, you know, efficiency and effective of the person, but everybody is different. If you're able, if my productivity is working for 3 hours getting things done, that's my kind of work. There are other persons who are way more hardworking and they would do the similar job getting done in 6 hours, but the quality is different, right? Everybody works in a different manner. Understanding that behavior, understanding where they come and how they work, what exactly the things are, right? Rather than just, you know, telling them, you know, I think those were the factors which just made me understand that, you know, when I think when I was sharing the bad news to employees, or telling that, you know, hey, I don't think so, the performance was that great from the perspective of the managers, you know, there were a lot of emotions that I was going through at the same time, because I was feeling very discomfort. I was having a lot of discomfort, and I wanted to understand what would be the person thinking at the same time, right? Understanding it and empathizing was the one factor that I really was intrigued with. I'm like, I need to empathize. You know, I'm empathizing with the company by doing, following all the structures and what the things, what the norms that needs to follow, but how can I empathize with the person if I don't know about this, if I don't know how the mind works, or how can we see the cues, verbal cues, body languages, other things, that how, yeah. So I think that's where it just clicked me.
So, as you have said that your mother and father, like you are born and brought up in two different culture.
Hmm.
So, how would you diversify the mental health in terms of geographical distribution in India itself?
It's a very good question. So in terms of um, how, okay, so because I come from a two different culture, we have to understand that what is the comfort, you know, understand the person from majority of their background, where it is, and what's the comfort that the individual is having first. That's very important, right? And then having a balance between both is what we have to think about. So if a person like me who is brought up majorly in north, right, and my mother tongue is south, so if I'm not good at language in my mother tongue, I should not be tagged as a bad person or a somebody who do, what kind of South Indian she is, that she doesn't know her own language. But it should be more that I know both the culture. I know having the awareness, having the acknowledging that I come from both the perspective, both the culture. That's the first step that we should see the mental health. Acknowledging and accepting is the main criteria that we all should work towards. A lot of time, because what is normal to you is not normal for me, right? But that tagging is not needed when we actually deal with people. We should be more of a non-judgmental bias at that time. More that it is okay to be where they come from, or it is not okay. We should not talk about that it is not okay where they come from, or I don't like them, or it's more of that accepting and acknowledging and having a non-judgmental bias is the main step that we should think about the mental health towards.
Thank you so much. And that answer was really great because it was not difficult question for me, but the profile says it's required to ask. Okay. So my next question would be, in your profile, it is mentioned that Manavta, it means humanity.
Hmm.
And you are working as a volunteer from last 9 or 10 years. So
Hmm.
what change it brings as a person in you as working as a Manavta volunteer?
um Again, so I am a person who is always, I felt that humans are social animals. So being and doing things with the society is what just made me just work towards it. So I mean, just working towards these perspective for the mission, so that it's betterment for the society, and rather than just not thinking about myself, but because I'm a part of a society, I need to bring things back to the society, or I'm able to do things for the society. I think that's where I come from. That's where I want to do it. And at the same time, it's just not only the society. I love animals. So I have a dog. And then at the same time, during the pandemic, when street foods, street dogs didn't have food, or because the restaurants were closed, so they could not scavenge for the food. At the same time, I was feeding the dogs of the street. So it's just not only the humans that I focus. It's more of that, in the world we should all live together rather than just, again, I'll come to that point again where I said that do not tag other people, rather than just be more inclusive. We all should live together rather than, just separating each one of us because of our whatever this differences that we have. So I think we should be more inclusive in nature, and that's where I think this societal aspect just bringing into me.
So the person or the students who are watching this session, I must say that her profile is so wide and interesting because whenever you talk to an individual, it should be a very narrow-minded in the terms of the career-wise, like if they do MBBS, MD, or something like that, psychology, MSc, and PhD. So if we see her profile, that does not talk about an individual thing. She holds MSc in behavioral science and MSc counseling psychology. So that was my question, that how would you think that both the things are required at a time or for the people, at a time for the people?
um to answer that question, I think it's more of the awareness, acknowledging. I mean, if I really wanted to do or something, I think just accept it. I mean, if you, it's more of an exploration thing that you should think about. What interests you, rather than, oh, can I start a new a lot of questions just came into that when I was opting for masters at the age of 25, right? I was pretty good in HR. I was getting good salary in the number wise, but a lot of people ask, are you sure, do you really want to do it at this age? And they were like, "Ki shadi, what about wedding, what about your future, what about family settlement and all of that?" I think those questions would just fall back if you are so much keen interested and you know what you really want to. I think the exploration is the answer for all of it. You need to have that exploration, that I need to learn, I need to grow more. It's It's an ongoing process. Never be stuck with the one thing that you've been doing all your life. Explore, learn more, do other things. So I mean, just imagine if I was playing just one sport in tennis. I know how to play volleyball. I know how to do kickboxing. I've learned mixed martial arts. I've done so many things, but I have never stopped with the one sport. I have played different things. It's the same thing that, you know, we have just one life, you know, and it is more important for us to explore every single time. It's not, you know, only after PhD you settle down. No, just keep learning, growing, have knowledge about anything that you want to do, just not only psychology. You can do a lot around environmental sciences, a lot about sustainable development. There's so many things that can interest all of us, right? So I think having that exploration in your mind would just help you to grow whatever in whatever field that you want to do. I think that's very important.
So if I say the idea behind why I asked this question, that never stop what you want to become, and never stop what
Yeah.
idea comes to your mind, because if we stops on that.
And never stop what your family tells you to do. I think if your family said that ki do MBBS, okay, do it. But at the same time, after that, still explore other things if you really wanted to do. I mean, India has a huge scope to learn. I think world has. It's like just if I want to bring, even India has a lot of scope to do whatever and whenever you want to do. There's so many options. You can just keep going. I think just do not stop things because of the societal pressure or societal norms that, you know, after this you just stop. No, I mean, just I think you can do multiple times, and any age. Like, age is never a barrier for learning. That's what I feel.
Thank you so much. That I have learned personally, if I have hosted this session, so I have learned three things from your session. You should acknowledge of your work, you should accept whatever you do, whatever you learn, and you should explore in your life.
Yeah.
So these three things I take from your session. As a learner, I don't say I'm an organizer. As a learner, I take from you, and I thanks to you that you came and give your time, which was difficult for us to manage from a last month, and it happened finally. So I was very happy, and we have done so tremendous. Like, you have done so much good session. So I must say thanks, a big thanks to you, and big thanks for your time to come on our platform.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you so much for giving this opportunity. I was pretty nervous, but then I think it just felt more comfortable that it was my perspective. It was talking about this is not easy, but it's important. It's again, I'll feel that it's more of awareness that I need to bring it. And it's our duty, you know. As a human, it is very important to bring more awareness to us. Word of mouth is the biggest news that how you can spread. So I think it's very important to keep us growing, and I was really happy to just share my experiences and my outlook about this.
Thank you so much. So we would end the session, and thank you so much. Thank you everyone who are watching this session.